She said, "You're lucky I love you." The call came at 2:14 a.m. A whisper, a name, then silence. Her name, from his number. I stared at the screen until it went black again, the reflection of my own face split by the crack I hadn't noticed before. I didn't call back, didn't speak, just listened to the hum of the house, the refrigerator's low breath, the slow rotation of the ceiling fan, her soft breathing in the next room. Everything sounded normal. That's what unsettled me most. In the morning, she smiled like nothing had happened, poured coffee, asked if I'd slept. I said yes. She said, "You're lucky I love you," the way someone says you're lucky to be alive. She touched my shoulder, lightly, absently. I wanted to ask about the call, but I didn't. I just watched the way her eyes didn't meet mine. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not broke, just detached, like a wire pulled free from its socket. I began to watch her, not obsessively, strategically. People reveal themselves in the small repetitions of their routine, the way she turned her phone face down, the late-night walks that lasted 20 minutes too long, the scent that wasn't mine on her clothes. I recorded none of it. I didn't need to. The mind, when wounded, becomes photographic. At dinner, she told me her boss had extended her hours. I nodded, as if that made sense. Later that night, I checked her location. She wasn't at work. She was 3 miles away, in my father's neighborhood. Denial is a strange mercy. It keeps you alive long enough to collect proof. I began building my case the next day, quietly, methodically. A mirrored phone backup. Deleted messages reappearing like ghosts returning to testify. He suspects nothing. Soon. Transfers. Hidden accounts. Each one linking back to him. My father. The man who taught me to never lie. The man who taught me how to hide one. It didn't make sense at first. It was too grotesque to fit into any known category of betrayal. But sense doesn't govern the human heart. Desire does. Greed does. Ego does. I began to map their pattern. The nights they both disappeared. The sudden affection in his calls. The way she'd defend him when I complained. I realized this wasn't infidelity. It was inheritance. They wanted me erased. Quietly. Entirely. I played the part of the oblivious husband. The obedient son. Silence became my weapon. I smiled at both of them over Sunday lunch while memorizing every detail. The way her fingers brushed his wrist, the way his eyes darted when I asked about the company's finances. I knew what they were doing, and they had no idea that I knew. That's the beauty of betrayal. You can only be stabbed from the front if you turn around to face it. 2 weeks later, the lab results arrived. The test was unnecessary by then. The resemblance, or lack of it, had already whispered the truth. Still, I needed verification. The boy sleeping down the hall wasn't mine. He was theirs. The paper trembled once in my hand, then stopped. I didn't cry. I didn't even breathe differently. It wasn't grief, it was understanding. Everything fit now. The whispers, the distance, the midnight call. The architecture of their deceit was perfect, except for one flaw. They underestimated the man they'd built. The confrontation wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. I chose the dining room, the same table where we'd celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, illusions. She was already seated when I entered. My father joined moments later, casual, unprepared. The folder waited between us. "What's this?" she asked. I didn't answer, just pushed it toward her. She opened it. Pages unfolded like blades. Messages, transfers, the DNA test. Her eyes flicked up, glassy, trembling. He glanced at me, his mask slipping for the first time. "You went digging." "I learned from the best," I said. Silence, thick, electric. He looked at her then, really looked, and saw her fear, saw mine reflected in it, sharpened into something he couldn't control. She started to speak, some half-formed excuse about confusion, about love, about accidents that weren't meant to happen. I cut her off with a whisper. "You're lucky I loved you." Her mouth fell open. I could almost hear the echo of her own words, thrown back at her with surgical precision. I turned to him. "And you're lucky I'm your son." His jaw tensed. He knew the double meaning. I could ruin them. Publicly, financially, completely. Instead, I offered them mercy that tasted like poison. "You can keep everything," I said. "The company, the child, each other." I stood, calm, controlled. "But you'll live knowing I walked away not because I couldn't fight you, but because you weren't worth the fight." Her eyes flooded, his face drained. I didn't feel satisfaction, just silence, stretching wide inside me, clean and absolute. They tried to speak, tried to explain, but explanations are just slower forms of lies. I walked out before they found words. Outside, the air was cold, real. The night pressed against my skin like something honest for the first time in months. I stood there for a moment, listening to the sound of my own breath, steady and unbroken. Peace doesn't arrive as forgiveness. It arrives as absence, the quiet after the storm, the relief of no longer needing to pretend. I didn't look back. Now, I count peace instead of days. The boy still carries my last name, though not my blood. They live in the house I built, sleep in the bed I paid for, breathe the air I left behind. That's their inheritance, each other, and the truth. Sometimes I imagine them at dinner, glancing across the table, wondering if the other will betray next. That's the thing about conspiracies. Once you create one, you can never truly stop looking over your shoulder. That's my revenge. Not fire, not ruin, just knowing they'll never find peace again, not the way I did. Love shouldn't hurt this much, but clarity always does. I walk now, lighter than I've ever been. Some ghosts haunt, others vanish. I chose to vanish, and in that silence, I became free.